discovernewport.org.
Hi, everybody. I'm Crystal Haynes. Tonight on Greater Boston, it's Giving Tuesday, philanthropy's answer to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But there are a lot of options for where to give, and it can be tough to make sure that your money is getting to the people and the places that need it. I'll talk to the Director of Communications for the Red Cross of Massachusetts and a philanthropy law expert ahead. Then Langston Hughes Black Nativity musical returns to Boston for the 53rd year this weekend. I'll talk to two actors who've been performing in that show since the very beginning. After everyone spends big on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday is a day to spread the wealth as well. Last year, people in the U.S. donated $3.1 billion to charities, according to the Giving Tuesday nonprofit. That's up 15% from 2021, but that money doesn't always make it to the communities that need it most. A growing share of donations are going to private funds and foundations, which are then intended to funnel that money to charities who can put it to good use. But there aren't any legal requirements for many of those private organizations known as donor-advised funds to actually distribute those donations. And in reality, a lot of money just ends up sitting in the bank. It's a problem a group of lawyers and lawmakers have in the past been trying to fix and currently work to do so. I'm joined now by one of the biggest proponents for change here, Ray Madoff, law professor at Boston College with a specialty in philanthropy policy, and Kelly Eisner is the Director of Communications at the Red Cross of Massachusetts. Welcome to you both to the show.
Thank you so much.
You know, we had a great discussion before the segment started. You know, you were talking a little bit about the danger of having this money being funneled to the private funds rather than to the larger, well-known charities that we know. And there's been a big change in the last 30 years or so. So I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. There's been a tremendously important change over the past 30 years. That is that 30 years ago, 95% of charitable donations went directly to charities like the Red Cross. The Red Cross has always been one of the biggest recipients of charitable dollars. And only 5% of donations went into donor-controlled accounts, things like private foundations and donor-advised funds. Now, 30 years later, charitable giving has remained the same as a share of disposable income. So it's even actually a little bit lower at about 2%. So pie hasn't grown any bigger. But what has changed is that more and more money is going not directly to charities like the Red Cross, but instead into these donor-controlled accounts like donor-advised funds and private foundations. And today they receive 41% of all charitable donations. And the problem is that there's no requirement for any of these funds to ever be spent on charitable ends. So we're in desperate need of reform in this area if we want our charities to be able to continue to do the important work that they're doing.
And Kelly, the need is even greater now than before.
Absolutely. The Red Cross has seen such an increase in climate-related episodes. You know, this year alone, there have been $25 billion plus climate disasters in the United States, and the year isn't even over yet. You know, we used to have a hurricane season and a fire season, but now these things are happening year-round, almost on a recurring basis. And, you know, agencies like the Red Cross, we go into these areas, we're providing food, shelter, you know, support, we're meeting those immediate needs, but those needs continue. And, you know, we're also trying to do this in a lot of different theaters all at once.
What happened so that the regulation around giving and these private funds went away or became more lax?
Yeah. Well, what happened was, it's interesting, in 1969, that was kind of the watershed year for tax reform. And at that time, Congress, for the first time, drew a formal recognition between public charities, organizations like the Red Cross and other ones like that, that are actually doing the work, and donor-controlled funds, which were called private foundations. And in order to make sure that money made their way to working charities, they imposed like a 5% payout on private foundations. And they also had things like like disclosure obligations, so we would know where those funds were going. And what happened is that since then, we developed a new vehicle, charitable giving vehicle, and it actually blossomed when financial service industries got involved. So Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, Goldman Sachs, big financial institutions realized that they could create their own public charities that for tax purposes would be treated the exact same as the Red Cross. So people would get all the tax benefits when they gave the money to these financially associated charitable funds, and yet would be able to continue to control the funds because these organizations said to donors, you give your money to us, to our newly created charity, and we'll hold it for you in a separate account, and we'll await your instructions for making distributions. So people got all the tax benefits up front, but charities had to wait for people to decide to disperse the funds. And it was this growth of donor-advised funds, which went from receiving basically nothing to this year receiving 27% of all donations went into donor-advised funds. That has caused such a massive shift. And Congress just has not kept up. They have not brought the regulations that we need to recognize that Fidelity Charitable, Schwab Charitable, Vanguard, those are not the same as the Red Cross, the food bank, local hospitals, churches, all the other organizations that do the work that we count on them to do.
And we know that previous Congresses have looked at it. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Last Congress, there was a bill introduced called the ACE Act by Senators King and Grassley. So it was a bipartisan bill. And there is a lot of interest on the Hill. And so, you know, I believe that there will be change that happens, but we need to have congressional attention, and we need nonprofits to be able to get what they need and deserve. You know, naturally, they're put in a little bit of a bind because they have to get the money they need from their donors, and it's uncomfortable for them to advocate for changes that in the law that are designed to serve them. But Congress knows that, and they have to look out for the interest of charities.
Well, I mean, Kelly, let's speak a little bit to that, because I'm sure that there are some folks who think they're giving money to the Red Cross in good faith, and then it's not necessarily hitting you all's accounts so that you can go out and help people in the natural disasters and things like that.
Sure, and I do have to say, too, we have great relationships. Our corporate partners have been incredibly generous, you know, and it's not that it's a fault with any one particular company, but, you know, here at the Red Cross, we do rely on the generosity of our volunteer donors. We're not a government-funded operation, so even as we take on these larger and larger scale, or even something like the Dorchester fire over the weekend, I mean, we had a big crew of volunteers there that were helping, and those needs are going to continue. You know, the flames are out, but there's still going to be a lot more need. And it comes down to when you donate to the Red Cross, that's where your money is going. You know, we're proud that 90 cents on every dollar goes back into our mission.
That's huge. Well, let's talk about things that are necessarily not above board. You know, some folks may be thinking that they're donating to an organization and it's just someone there to scam or take your money. We know the Attorney General put out, you know, a sort of a list of things to be careful for, and making sure that you know where you're giving. How important is that, Ray?
That's very important, and there are a lot of scams out there. You know, people take advantage with phone calls and, you know, where people pretending to be charities, and that's definitely a problem as well.
Yeah, I mean, how do you, I'm sure, you know, how do you all at the Red Cross, because it seems like it can be an easy target, because everyone knows the Red Cross is a charitable organization.
Sure.
Right?
And
like, how do you safeguard against folks who, you know, might be using your name where they shouldn't be?
Well, we are always on the lookout for how our name and how our brand is being used. Sometimes I feel like the logo police a little bit, because I have to be very careful about how you can use this. But it's because this logo also carries a lot of weight with it. You know, people see this and they let us behind the front lines or into disaster scenes. So, I mean, it really is a powerful thing that I'm safeguarding. I'm not just being fussy over it. But it's true. When it comes to, you know, there are a lot of, you know, every day there's information on social media. The Red Cross does often get sucked into that, and we just have to be out there countering some of that misinformation. The one thing that I think really is impressive to me is that if you donate to the Red Cross, the Red Cross is in Massachusetts. We've got 8 blood donation centers here. We've got our Medford headquarters. All our email addresses are online. You know how to reach us. Talk to us. If you're not sure if it doesn't sound right, my CEO has been up at 11 o'clock at night answering emails about well, I heard the Red Cross did this, and I was like, that's not exactly right. But we try to make ourselves available and to answer these questions as well.
Well, we were talking about giving is down this year. What have you all seen in terms of that impact on the work that you do?
Well, we are definitely, again, we're so grateful for the generosity of our donors. But I also think that it's important that people understand it doesn't have to be a $10,000 donation if that's not in the books for you. A $25 here and $50 there really adds up, and it grows to something that can support the work that the Red Cross does. $20 can buy a hot meal or a blanket for someone in a shelter.
On Giving Tuesday, Ray, as we think about, where we put our money and what we think about that, what do you, as someone who sort of is well-versed in many sides of this particular issue, what do you tell folks about, protecting themselves, but also when they're giving?
I think it's wonderful to give to organizations where you see the work being done. And it's so important. I think one of the things the Red Cross does is it gets people involved on the front lines doing work, volunteering and things like that. But, where people know nonprofits all around them, they know the people that are involved with them. And I think that those local organizations are often doing tremendously powerful work. But I think the thing about giving and what makes our system so great is that different people are drawn to different things. Some people are drawn to the arts. Some people are passionate about medical issues. And I think you can make a mistake when you think, I have to give the ultimate thing, and then you don't give it all. So much more important to just give where your heart calls you to give, and don't worry about it being the best.
Yeah. And I think, Kelly, to your point, as we were talking about, some of these tips about you don't have to feel if they're pressuring you and all of these kinds of things, if it doesn't feel right, reach out to the organization.
Absolutely. Ask us questions. Also, there are independent websites. Charity Navigator is one of them, GuideStar, that their job is to basically take the claims of a charity and put them to the test and say, well, they look at financial statements. And, I would encourage people to do your homework and to really get involved. And the last thing, and Ray mentioned it, is that you can, I'm talking about the Red Cross because it's what I know, but with a lot of charities, if you donate to the Red Cross, you might have an opportunity to come volunteer with us, see the end result of that money that you're giving in. We have volunteer opportunities. You can also give blood, which helps the organization in a way that's not a financial hit, but still goes to people that need that in the moment.
It doesn't cost you any money.
Exactly.
You can give what you can. All right. Well, thank you both, Ray Madoff and Kelly Eisner. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, next up, for more than 50 years, Boston has been treated to the joyful sound of Christmas thanks to Langston Hughes Black Nativity. It reimagines the biblical story with gospel music, dramatic dance, and a cast of more than 75 kids and adults.
And so it was that her days were accomplished, that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger. He was born on Christmas, but he laid in a manger. Now tell me, wasn't that a pity and a shame?
Now the show is a partnership with the National Center of Afro-American Artists, and NCAA director Barry Gaither joins me now ahead of the premiere, along with Buddy Hughes and Vivian Cooley-Collier, who have both been cast members of this production for more than 50 years. And Vivian, I think that's who we heard singing.
Yes,
just in that clip there.
That was me.
50 years you have been a part of this cast. Tell me, how did you get involved in the production?
It's a long story, but I won't go into that. Actually, my brother and Vernon Blackman's son, who used to be the drama director at the Elmwood School of Fine Arts, wanted to start a rock group. Well, we used one of the studios at the school, and John Ross happened to be in the other studio, and he heard us, and there you have it.
Nice.
Beginning of Black Nativity.
50 years you've been with this production.
53 years.
Yes.
Oh,
Vivian
yes.
and I are the original cast members.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. How have audiences changed over that time? I know, right?
From family to family, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You could hear people say, well, I brought, you know, like the grandfathers here and then the grandkids. It's a family thing. You know, and you don't understand everybody's not into Black Nativity, but that's their loss. But we have families from the Elma Lewis School who used to be there at the Elma Lewis School for Black Nativity are coming to the Paramount Theater now.
Nice.
You know.
Yeah.
Beyond that, there is good attraction with the show from beyond Boston.
Exactly.
We have some audiences from Vermont, from New Hampshire, from other areas around. And I would say we also have an appreciable portion of audience that's not people of color. So we offer the show as a gift
To Boston.
from Boston's Black community to men and women of goodwill from all traditions. And we offer it not so much as a simple Christian narrative, but as a narrative about the meaning of new birth and the opportunity that it brings, and the perpetual possibility of peace that's created by that recognition.
And I know that over the 53 years that the show has been in production, the stage changes a little bit, things sort of innovate. I know that one of the things that has been on the bill that describes the show is an innovative approach. How do you tweak the show over the years?
Well, let me make a slightly longer frame for that.
Okay.
The first appearance of the show in Boston as a production of the National Center of Afro-American Artists, which remains its producer and owner, that took place at the Elma Lewis School of Fine Arts in Roxbury, 122 Elm Hill Avenue, in the early winter of 1970. But since that time, the show has been at Blackman Auditorium, at Northeastern, at RCC's auditorium, a time or two at the Opera House, and a very long run at Tremont Temple. And each of those was a different setting. And the show, although fundamentally the same, responded to each of those environments and to the different mixes of audience that each of those brought. A good way to think of the show as one in which there is perpetual innovation and creativity within a tradition that sustains. When people come, they expect to hear music such as they remember from Black Nativity. They expect to see that dramatic dance that choreographs the birth of the Christ child. And they expect him to say, go tell it.
Exactly.
So they come with some expectations in mind. And even though those may change a little, because there are different voices, and each performer brings a different delivery to their musical message, all of those are still woven into and bound up in something that feels familiar enough to be comforting, and at the same time exciting enough to be joyful.
Well, I mean, Buddy tells me, how does it feel to say "Go Tell It on the Mountain" for 53 years?
Well, I didn't start doing Go Tell It till about the third year of the show.
Okay.
I was the only bass in the show at the start, and that carried on for like 5 years. But it changes every time I step out on the stage. There's no set thing. It depends on how I feel that day. I might do it a little bit slower and a little faster. It's a progressive song. And Go Tell 'Em On is not the only song I do in the show.
Of course.
Of
Right.
course.
Yeah. How did you get involved in the show?
I was drafted by John Ross. I call it drafted because I was at school. I was singing with the Metropolitan Chorus, who later changed its name to the National Center Chorus. And we were on break from a show we were doing called Kids Met. And I was standing in the doorway listening to my sister here sing. And Mr. Ross said, "You sing. What do you sing, bass, baritone, or tenor?" And I said, "Yes." and I wasn't laughing. He said, "Come over here." So he started playing it. I went from first tenor all the way down to bass.
Wow.
He said, "We need a bass. Sit down." I said, "I can't. I'm on break." He said, "When you're done, be here. Don't make me find you." So you see, I was drafted.
Yeah.
Let me put a footnote to that.
Yeah, please.
John Andrew Ross, who has been referenced a few times, was the music director for the National Center for Afro-American Artists
I see.
from the turn of 1970 until his death in 2006. And he stamped the music that is our approach to Black Nativity. John's relationship to Black Nativity is itself very interesting. John's father had been a roommate of Langston Hughes's
Wow.
at Lincoln University. John Ross
Yeah.
thought of Langston like an uncle. And whenever Langston came to town, he stayed at John's house. So in the second half of the 60s, when Black Nativity first toured, it came to Boston. John saw it in Boston, had conversations with Langston about it in Boston, and when John became director of music for the National Center, it was his first significant production to mount. And John created the vehicle of Black Nativity out of the huge resources that were available at the National Center and the Elma Lewis School. What were those huge resources? No shortage of talented singers and actors and dancers and musicians. The vision of Mary and Joseph dancing, and especially the concept of Mary delivering the child in the performance, came from the genius of George Howard. George Howard was one of two choreographers who worked for the National Center at that moment in time. Billy Wilson was the other choreographer. His work more or less in the Alvin Ailey kind of vein. But George Howard descends from the work of Catherine Dunham, who had established Afro-Caribbean dance in American dance theater in the 50s.
Wow.
So that already had a lineage. What John manages to create in this vehicle is this resource of Afro-Caribbean dance comes in, and it's supported by African drumming.
Yeah.
The African drumming derives from Michael Babatunde Olatunji.
Yeah.
Olatunji is the person who made African music on the American scene with his drums of passion, after which African music had a place in the American musical scene. Mr. Olatunji commuted a couple of days a week from Harlem to teach
To Boston?
African drums at the Elma Lewis School of Fine Arts.
That's amazing.
So our present percussionist, Steve O'Neill, had been the student of Olatunji's. And many of the other members of the cast were students mentored by Olatunji, and enough of a body of people in that to carry forward that musical heritage.
Yeah.
So whereas other Black nativities were fundamentally gospel performances, ours brought forward this rich sense of heritage, Afro-Caribbean.
Yeah.
The other thing it brought forward that was striking was the voices of children.
Yes.
Well,
The
we
original
mentioned-
production didn't have children.
Yeah, we
Was it-
mentioned now there are 75 children and adults in the production. That's extraordinary.
Well, we have fewer children than at some earlier points.
Yeah.
When we ran a school, we had endless number
I'm sure,
of youngsters.
Yeah.
Now we have a fine number of youngsters,
Yeah.
but I think we'd be happy to grow back more
Yes,
if we ever got
definitely.
back to being a school, because children's voices bring a lightness
So important.
and the gaiety that lends even more to the notion of a joyous, uplifting music.
Yeah.
So those are sort of earmarks
Right, yeah.
of the production here in Boston. Now, I don't sing. They don't allow
Well, let
me
me ask
in the
Vivian,
show.
since you do sing, what does it feel like to get up there and watch the audience, them bringing back their children, year after year, watching you sing these songs?
What does it feel like?
Yeah.
Each year it feels different.
Okay.
Because you touch someone differently. So you're just trying to grab that person and let them know what the true meaning of Christmas is.
Yeah.
And that's like Barry said, that's our gift, So it makes me feel good to know that I lasted this long to do Black Nativity, because I used to live in California and I made it my business. I lived there for 10 years.
Yeah,
I had to be here for Black Nativity every year.
that's amazing.
She came back every year, it's true.
Yep, every year.
All right. Well, I hope that everyone comes and sees Black Nativity.
Oh, I hope
that
so, too.
Has seen this broadcast, that continues to, and then you all continue to bless and touch folks the way you have.
Oh,
in the
we
last,
will.
5 decades. And I appreciate your time. Barry Gaither, Buddy Hughes, and Vivian Cooley-Collier, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you can catch Black Nativity at the Paramount Center from December 1st through the 17th. For tickets and more information, head to blacknativity.org. All right, well, that's it for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Crystal Haynes. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.